When we think about Sea Scouts, we often think about large vessels, powercraft and sailboats, but paddle sports is also a great option for any ship. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of reasons that a ship might want to pursue paddle sports, and really the first one is that paddle sports are the most popular type of boating activity in the U.S. 20 to 50 million people per year participate in some type of paddle sports, which gives us a huge number of people to recruit scouts from and to recruit leaders from. One of the reasons that paddle sports is popular is because it's easy to get to. It's relatively inexpensive to acquire the boats and the associated equipment that you need, paddles, life jackets, and such. Storage is easy. You could literally throw your boat on the backyard or slip it under a porch. Transport is simply throw the boat in the back of your truck, and maintenance is very easy as well. Typical maintenance on a whitewater kayak is 15 or 20 minutes per year. Make sure that the bolts that are in there are tight, and wash it off once a year at the end of the season. Because paddlecraft are easy to transport, it also means that you've got access to a wide range of bodies of water. Really any place of water that you can walk to that has a nearby parking area to put your car, you can use as an access point for paddling. So anytime a highway crosses over a river or crosses over a lake, that's an access point. Any beach is an access point. Just the number of places and the ease to get to them is really impressive when you're used to working with a large marina and has a large built-up parking area and resources that are there. Next slide, please. But most importantly, I'd say that the best reason to be involved with paddle sports is that it's another way to have fun on the water. There are all sorts of different craft that we can use. And next slide, please. And those different types of craft mean that you're not just stuck doing one thing. A person can be in a kayak on one day, the next day they can be on a canoe, and the day after that they can be on a stand-up paddleboard. Some of the skills transfer directly from craft to craft. For example, reading the water, understanding what the water is doing, and how your boat is going to react to that. But certainly sitting down and using a double-bladed paddle in a kayak is different than laying down on a boat and using hand paddles or standing up on a paddleboard. Next slide, please. So if you're going to start boating, if you're going to start paddling, really the best place to start is in a small protected area. That might be a pond or a small lake. It could even be a swimming pool. But the goal is to create an area where your scouts can sit down and learn the skills that they need to control their boat without worrying about hazards. If you decide to stay in what we call a flat water environment or an open water environment, the next step would be to just move into more exposed conditions. So larger lakes and bays, sounds where you've got a potential for wind, current, and even some surf. From there, you just continue moving up until you're scared. Just recognizing that at some point you're going to be running up with some of the limits that are placed by the Guide to Safe Scouting. Next slide, please. If you choose to go into a river environment, again, after you've had that protected flat water training, you're going to move into some easy rapids where there's little or no maneuvering required to avoid hazards. From there, you continue to move up. Within Guide to Safe Scouting, we generally restrict things to Class 2-3 whitewater, which means that there's some maneuvering required. There are some hazards. There might be 2 to 3 foot, 4 foot standing waves, waterfalls up to 3 or 4 feet, which may sound big, but it's not as big as you might see for other things. At some point, you may be looking at involving professional guides or high adventure centers and moving into Class 4 whitewater, where there are larger hazards that you have to move around in order to be safe. Next slide, please. In order to do paddle sports, you do need to get some training, and Sea Scouting has a memorandum of understanding with the American Canoe Association, ACA. ACA is pretty much the gold standard for paddle sports education in the U.S. There are instructors that are certified by ACA in all sorts of places. Local paddling clubs, local outfitters, and paddling schools are a great place to start. Parks and recreation programs with cities and counties are a great place, and then college outing programs are also an outstanding place to find instructional resources. In addition to these hands-on resources, there's also some very good written resources. The Sea Scouting website has a paddle sport cruising section that's got a lot of information. And then some of the Boy Scouting Merit Badge textbooks, both the kayaking, canoeing, and the whitewater Merit Badge have great information. And then the stand-up paddleboard program has some good information. Next slide, please. If you're going to be paddling, you do need some equipment. And as I said, it's relatively inexpensive, sometimes free to get it. You just have to ask the right people. A great place to start is with the paddling clubs that you got some instruction from. Lots of paddling clubs have some type of affiliation through individual members with Scouting, and just asking for donated gear is a great place to start, and you'll be surprised at how many people will be willing to give you equipment. If you have to look for used equipment or even new equipment, outfitters often have end of the season sales at the end of the summer as they try to clear out their inventory. Local stores will often provide discounts to Scouting programs, and manufacturers will also provide those discounts. Currently, Sea Scouting has 3 formal discount programs for fleet discounts with Jackson Kayak, Belyak, and with MTI Life Jackets. I've got my contact information at the end of this presentation, and feel free to contact me if you're interested in getting any of that. But all of these companies do offer essentially wholesale pricing, which means you can get brand new equipment roughly at the cost that you'd be getting well-used equipment from a club from. Next slide, please. When you start paddling, you probably are going to want to start with a professional guide or a professional instructor just to get a taste of what's going on. There are lots of paddling schools, and essentially you're doing the same thing working with them as you would if you were chartering a boat with a captain. You're paying somebody to provide you instruction, provide you some guidance on where to paddle, and to make sure that you have a good opportunity, a good experience as you go out for the first time. When you decide to move away from that professional guide and do a self-guided trip, my advice would be to start small. Start off in those small protected areas, focus on having fun and developing skills so that you can move on to more challenging environments. One way to do that is to combine your paddling trips with other trips. For example, if you're on a sailing trip, throw a stand-up paddleboard on your deck, and when you anchor for the evening, take the paddleboard out and do some short trips down to the beach or around your boat. As you do that, that's going to allow you to gradually build up experience and knowledge and skills. Next slide, please. As you develop that knowledge and skills, you may want to be involved with training other units, which will help recruit Sea Scouts and also help spread the word about Sea Scouting. One other way to do that is to be involved with waterway cleanups. As you expand your knowledge and your skills base, you'll eventually want to start doing some multi-day trips. And 2 ways to do that are, one, to start from a base camp, so stay at a campground and then go to day trips from that campground, and then ultimately moving into some overnight self-supported trips. But whatever you do, my advice would be to remember to have fun. Paddle sports are a great way to do that. And next slide, please. If there's anything I can do to help your ship do that, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.